Hello, and thank you for joining us for this live Sunday service. Today, on Sunday, with Transcending Ascension, Reverend Diana Marie. Today, I bring you the message of the divine, the ultimate message that we can always be experiencing, that on this day of Sunday, we need to be reminded. Because when you flood yourself with the truth that you are God, you are divine, that's when the miracles of your life really, truly begin to blossom and shine. You are God, you are of God, the all is mind, and this whole thing works together symbiotically. You need to be a living God spirit every day in your life, not just today on Sunday, not just any moment that you think about it, when it just pops into your head, or when something goes wrong and you cry out and you pray. Please, can you make sure the dog doesn't knock down the phone? Please. But do I live every day in a God space? I do. So the dog just left. But you might not, or someone you know might not. You probably know many people in your life that just constantly find problems and have problems pop up and manifest in their life because they aren't living from that divine God space of sureness, that sure space where you know you're God. And does that mean we hold full God powers? No, but that's okay. In this incarnation, we have chosen to be a human. We want the experience of being human. We enjoy this at a higher cosmic level. In the place where all is good, all is love, all is peace, they continued to expand and explore and stretch out. The bandwidth grows, and this is where we find ourselves now, even as humans in this experience. We're stretching more out into a lived reality where we are actually going to get to experience more of that God space. We've always been divine, we've always been God, but right now during this ascension phase, the human actually gets to experience, and en masse, not just one or two enlightened saints, but all of us get that opportunity to walk and experience a life as God. What does that mean? How do we live as God? Is there specific rules or rituals I need to follow? Not at all. It is all tailor made by you and for you. So you just need to find the avenue and the place that gets you into your most highest God centered self. In the beginning, and always, but especially in the beginning, it's going to be trial and error, testing and choosing, thinking and knowing and learning and feeling into the self to know thyself. This is why knowing thyself is the real key and the real cure for humanity. Because when you know thyself, you know the way that's the best for you to connect as God to God. We have broken off, obviously. It's a continual process of breaking off from the all that is God. It starts to shoot down and branch off like a tree. That's why trees are so special. It's like so many things. Our tree, our seed of life here, our flower of life. We start as the seed and we spread and we spread and we spread, and our matrices grow. But in that process, we become more individuated. And the human is said to be the ultimate individuation, the most ultimate experience where God gets to feel only like one being. But we're not even one being. The messages inside our head come from all over the place. So, to ensure that we live from a God centered space, we need to fine tune our own methods of determining how and why we are God and connecting to that. So, for example, this right now, bringing this to you, becoming a minister, this is part of my process in how I align with my highest God self. And you'll find it depends because we all have our own astrological makeup, but you'll find a calling of God. We all have many callings. There'll be one that holds above the rest. And this is where your timelines come into place and how you choose timelines, because it ultimately is all your own choice. What helps me make my choices is what is most divine, what is most of God, because it brings you to that higher God space faster. Now, coming to that higher God space, if you come from a Christian place, it's all told to be like, we're going to go to heaven. You want to make sure you go to heaven. You want to make sure you create heaven on earth for yourself. This is very, very, very possible. Heaven is yours to have. I could say right now, because everybody has those near-death experiences or moments in meditation where they have instant enlightenments. I've had them myself. In the Christian religion, they call it anointings. The fire comes down upon you and you have an enlivening of the spirit. Now, this is real. This can happen. I've had it happen myself, but it can wear off, not fully, but it dissipates. Like, it's not a permanent thing. What is permanent is changing your habits, changing your lived beliefs. Now, this doesn't even necessarily imply God. It implies there's so much humanness that we don't realize. Like, we think God and bills are separate. They're not. The all is the all. This entire earth, we are all one. Yes, we are all one in God, but we are all one as humans as well. There is an overarching monadic being that is all humans. Specifically, they hold their own lifeline, their own story that they are living out right now. So where is your best place in this? And things that keep you clean are salt baths, correct thinking. That doesn't mean someone should boss around your thinking, but it means learning to seek intuitively inside the self on nudges of this is good, this is not good. And how do we know if it's good or not? Our emotions are there to teach us what is good for us and what isn't. So you're going to need to get into a space of learning to allow your emotions, because when we allow our emotions, and this doesn't mean giving in, if you feel a burst of sadness, yet there's no obvious reason for the sadness, just learn to deep breathe. This is why it's helpful for you. Into the nose, out through the mouth, so you can get it in and get it out. You can learn to breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, release for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and repeat and repeat. Or breathe in for 7 seconds, hold for 3 seconds, release for 7 seconds, breathe in for like there's many different rhythmic patterns, because math is of the divine. So there again, even with your breathing, there's not one way to choose, but there perhaps is a better way for you. In a given situation, you might have multiple different ways you like to breathe. Specifically, when we're trying to learn our emotions, we're going to want to make sure it's a slow breath. It's an allowing breath. It's a continuing breath as we try to detach and allow. So we're detaching from any mind stories. We don't want to allow in mind stories, because mind stories, that Eckhart Tolle term there, is other things. It could be you, or it could be other things printing on a story. Oh, you're sad because of your mother. Oh, you're sad because you have to do this tomorrow. Oh, you're sad because of work. Oh, you're sad because the house is a mess. Maybe, but not necessarily, and probably not. That's how emotions work. Always think to what you just did. What did you just do? For example, I earlier today opened a cupboard door which holds a garbage in it. I had taken that garbage out yesterday to wash it. The garbage wasn't there, but I was like, I have this garbage. And I'm like, I'll just pick it up later because it's just a candy wrapper. It's not gross. I threw it into the cupboard anyways, closed the door, walked away. But I felt that, oh, that was wrong. I hurt my soul. I don't know why. But that was a no. That was a no on clean living. That was a no on what I have promised myself, which for me, when you have children and animals, abundant life in busyness, staying clean and organized becomes a mission in its own. This is why each of our missions are personal to ourselves and what we've chosen for our lives. If I've chosen to be a professional rock climber, my missions and the things I'm going to play with to find the most divine way to do that are going to be personal for me. And I say this as a rock climber, I do love it. You do feel the spirit guiding you to grab each and everything. I'm not a professional one, but this is just another example of how we tailor the divine to our lives. If you get a phone call, you're not even sure if you should answer it. Learn to listen if you should, because you don't always have to. This is another thing where society teaches us being rude is always wrong. The newer generation is actually starting to toy with that, and boundaries is becoming a commonplace thing. But we always want to make sure our boundaries are not for our ego. Okay, because we can love and appreciate and honor the ego because it's very necessary. It's part of the reason we're individualized, is thanks to the ego. However, to have that higher timeline, soul-centered life, the ego is not necessarily where you're going to want to be feeling. If your path is correct for your highest timeline, you want to be feeling what the soul feels. This means getting to know your soul. It's one of the reasons meditation is so powerful, yet you don't even need to always be meditating to get these experiences. When we sit and meditate, for honestly, you want to get to do it, you want to be doing it for years and years and years. But you can deeply meditate. I bet after a week of meditating every day for at least 20 minutes, you're going to know the feeling of your soul signature. There's an energetic burst that is the soul. And if you've been living from a soul aligned place for a long time, you're going to know your soul. You're already good friends with it. You're already connected. But there is a large number of people that were raised not even knowing they had a soul. I was one of them. There's a lot of the younger generations being raised to be atheist, meaning they don't even know what their soul feels like. It's always been shut down for them. When I first got started, I had an actual egg that was holding down my soul. I knew there was a connection that could be being made, like between, I knew there was a link. I divinely inspired knew that there could be a link with that soul place, but there was an actual visceral calcification holding it down that would not let it come out to its full capacity. This took almost it took a few months, not quite a year, but a few months. And I was already learning spirituality and magic, but I knew there was a deeper divine connection, that purest holy of holy Christ consciousness space of full love and light, a full feeling just all the time, a divine place of peace, of compassion that we can always step back into. Yes, we can get knocked out of it, but it's there to be stepped into. Some people don't have access to that all the time. They're being covered. So salt baths, deep breathing, crystal work, energy movement. And I did not hire a single person to help me with this. I have always found it my mission to heal and grow and learn all by myself. Does that mean I don't have certifications? No, I have lots. Does that mean I didn't go to school? No, I went to university and I have a metaphysical degree, because you can learn and educate, but I'm walking myself through that process. I have teachers and people to grow from, but not a healer that came through and did magic on me to heal me. Not any one-on-one situation of anybody holding my hand to lead me through it, because I wanted to show the people that it can be done on your own, by yourself, for free. You do not need to pay anybody a dollar to be one and divine and united with your soul. You are God, and your soul is the ultimate way. Christ consciousness, that place, it is either directly your soul, or it's more likely a wormhole that energetically takes you to that soul aligned place. So we want this all the time. And the way that you're going to live within that space is individuated in yourself, but also individuated in the timeline of space that you are. So if you are early into awakening, it's okay to never have actually felt that space yet, but you feel it calling. You want to touch it. Feel what's blocking you. So that's how I felt the egg. Maybe you're going to feel something different, and let me know how that felt for you. What we need more examples to teach people, because the number of atheists is growing, but they're not going to stay that way. You can't stay that way alive for that long, because you're ultimately going to fizzle out. The body can only go on. So I found myself in that place where I might not be alive today because I woke up in my mid 20s. It was about 25 when my health got just to a point, and then that's usually the story where people are like, okay, enough is enough, because your health just doesn't let you continue on as an atheist. Your body needs the soul as its own food source. The thirsty, your cup overfloweth, thanks to Jesus, that's because that Christ consciousness space is going to take you to your soul. And he was definitely an enlightened master that gave us these tools of purity. He gave us purity. So one of the things you're going to want to look into is, and to tell whether it's something you should do that's going to benefit your soul, is it pure? Is it pure? Is it pure? Right? And I'm saying, because you're always, every single thing is going to take this, and there adds extra difficulty into this, because when you first start enlightening, so another thing, when I first cracked that eggshell and I got into my soul, I, we all do this, thought I was instantly a Jesus, and was just had to be so self-sacrificing and throw myself down on the fire for anybody that wanted to walk over it, because I'd enlightened and I was going to be that God person for everybody. Well, that put me into more physical problems, because you are still a human and you can still be drained. So there becomes layers after layers after layers, and you're awakening at how you're going to grow, how you're going to expand, how you're going to learn. So I next had to go into a space of learning to have boundaries. And honestly, that's a continuous one, because when you're dealing with people, you really want to help people. You do want to help people, but everybody has their own energy systems they need to monitor. So for example, I'm like, we have our astrology. I'm a Sagittarius, and there's so many variants that go into astrology. You should always be looking at your star charts, things you can do yourself online. Well, then came along human design, and that helped me huge, because I found out I was a projector. Projectors make sense why being a minister and telling you about God is my calling, because that's what the projector does there, to bring in the new way of living. We're literally channeling it in and bringing it out en masse. And we also do something and heal the energy as it's all happening simultaneously. And that's exhausting. That's exhausting. So that means I need to allow myself way more space to heal and recover. And I'm not unique. There's 22% of us that's growing. A little bit ago it was 20%. Now they're averaging, how they get their statistics, I won't pretend to know, but they're saying about 22%. Well, if you know math class, you take 20 people and you do the thing, and then you just make that an example for the whole world. That's how they're probably doing the math there. So in that regard, we are growing, and it's going to continue to grow. We didn't pop on the scene until the mid 1700s, taking the human from 7 energy centers to 9 in a human design understood way. I don't know how this actually correlates together with your chakras. Does this mean we have extra chakras? Yes. That would be my divine answer to that. Yes, we do. And you can feel that. Why do you think pink's the color now? Pink just so happens to be the color of your above chakra. Pink didn't used to exist in the world. In fact, colors in general a couple hundred years ago were far more bland. Just an example of how the earth as well is going through this alchemical process of learning and shuffling and growing along the way. And boundaries is a way we need to learn to grow. Being a pure atheist and connecting to our soul and just learning what that feels like is a way to go. And just in everything we do, we need to learn our intuitive self of yes, no, how we were talking at the beginning of the episode. Does this feel good for my soul? Does this not? Now, before we get to that soul, that's why we need to learn to fully feel our soul. And once you do, your intuitive space of yes, no, it becomes way louder. It becomes visceral. Like I feel, if anyone's ever had anxiety or even just acid reflux, it is like a fiery burn in the chest space. Let me know if you ever feel the same, of just that's no, that's a no, that's a no. And then I get like a tickle, like a, if it's a yes, and then sometimes it's just neutral. Sometimes it's just neutral, and it's neither here nor there, meaning it probably wouldn't have altered the timeline either way, although everything always microly does. But I feel like the bigger hits, because it's all about timeline shifting. Your growth is essentially timeline shifting. Miracle healings are timeline shifting. So the more powerful you are at it, the more rapidly you can miracle heal, because you can shift to a higher timeline. Like, so your timeline's here, boom, whoop, you just went way up here. But where the majority of us are going to fractionally step their way into the kingdom of heaven, which is ultimately our highest possible timelines. What they talk about fifth dimension is that higher dimensional space, because as we raise in timeline, we are raising out the frequency. We are expanding. How our flower of life here never stops growing. It's increasing and increasing and increasing as new sacred geometry shapes layer themselves over us to create a bigger, more intertwined dynamic dimension, meaning more things are going to be possible. It's why right now, as we break the chains of the slave mentality, which has actually been holding all of us down for a very long time, we still hold slaves today at a higher degree technically than ever before because of the population and the ways that they're making industrial level slavery. But that's just one sad example of how we are shifting and moving and how that can easily be removed right now. Because as the individual, telling your boss no or simply quitting your job to start an individual business or to just give your individual business more attention. This is how we break that mentality of learning just because they're so-called the manager or so-called the owner, or even if it's your parents and you're an adult or any respected figure, you do not owe anybody your allegiance, your servitude. You do not owe anybody you. You are a sovereign being that is going to get to a soul-led place using your discernment. Discernment, if you have never heard the term, I advise you to dive into saturating yourself in this term, because this term, discernment, is the true key here of how we navigate ourselves to those higher timelines. Because when we are discerning, it goes into that soul feeling of yes, no, but so much more. It's also using our intellect to weigh all the odds and actually see the higher course for us, because discernment holds almost like a magical power to it. It's judging, because it comes from that term judgment, but without any of the negativity, because it's not negative. It's just how you want to use good judgment. Well, take good judgment off the table and use the word discerning. Discerning is where your soul is going to lead you to your highest place. Because when we know we are divine, when we know our soul will lead us to the best possible outcome for this human incarnation, your entire purpose in life will be to find that space, will be to find that line for you to follow. That is what you're going to want. And that's what I bring to you on these Sunday services, which will never have a time, but I'm going to post it so you can always find it by the end of the day, Sunday. It'll be there for you to find so that you can remind yourself every Sunday to go into your week that you are divine. You are God, but you were in a human incarnation. There was maps that God gave us, God ourselves gave us, to get to a higher kingdom of heaven on earth, so we can still live that individuated life that God wants. As a human, God wants this. But does God want to come down here and suffer? Wait, like, this is what we all get into that second. You're like, oh, why did you do this to me, God? God didn't do it to you. You, as God, chose to have it be done because you want to live as an individuated person. Do you want to be in pain? No. Did God bite off more than it could chew? I don't, that's not technically possible. However, it is possible as we continue down and down and down the fall. So there is a good number of us that are stirred up and confused in that atheistic space, especially where they are the lowest of the low, even below bad religions, because at least a religion is going to tell you about the soul and you're going to have some soul connection, which will help you speed up faster. An atheist is stuck with no soul, but I was an atheist. I found my way out. It is the darkest of the dark when you don't know you have a soul, when you don't know there's a God, when you actually were raised that way. So it's in your subconscious. Your subconscious is God. So your actual God level subconscious thought it wasn't a God. Could you imagine how detrimental that can actually be? But we will continue this journey, and you will continue to rise and expand and be more of the God being that you want to be and you were always meant to be. God bless. Divine blessings to you all in your soul. See you next Sunday. Goodbye.